Hello there. Yesterday my gut instinct screamed at me not to get involved in those supposed 100 far-right protests last night. So I felt I had to warn people, and I'm glad I did. But there are serious questions to be answered. Yesterday, someone or some organisation, even state players may have been involved. Someone decided to try and spring a trap on ordinary concerned citizens. But why? I'll tell you why. The two Unite the Kingdom pro-UK rallies on the 1st of June and the 27th of July sent the establishment reeling. Especially as they were organised by a certain Mr. T, who they thought they had vilified and bullied into obscurity. But they hadn't. These shadowy players have now shown their hand, so expect to see more of the likes of last night, where they hoped to suck in loads of ordinary people into a trap that would have ended up with mass arrests. But they missed one vital piece of the jigsaw out. The fact that the ordinary citizens had not organised those particular protests. Previous protests, like the ones I attended at Downing Street, Portsmouth and Weymouth, had been organised by those opposed to knife crime. They were noisy, but overwhelmingly peaceful in nature. Yes, a few hotheads were there, but as I've said before, they were vastly outnumbered by the peaceful protesters. But those last night just appeared out of nowhere on some list on the web, but with no organisation to back them up, leading to so few attendees from the mythical far right. In contrast, the super wokesters on the left had mobilised at very short notice, all well coordinated with lots of pre-prepared placards. So at least one of the sides was well prepared, wasn't it? Now, here's what the DPP Stephen Parkinson told Sky News about retweeting stuff on the web, and this is important.
The offence of incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting or abusive, which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence. And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification arrests and so forth. So it's a really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them.
And I've since read that it's been confirmed that retweeting riot locations could also be a crime. Now, in the lead up to last night, all we heard about was the 30 locations, mounting over time to 100, where it was feared there would be far-right-led riots. Riot locations. Just about the whole police force was on standby in vans on motorway roundabouts across the country, waiting to be called in, and the press was full of warnings, and businesses shut early and boarded up their premises. All on the back of that list. So could it be that all those lefties tweeting and retweeting a location to be at in order to confront protesters were tweeting and retweeting the location of a potential riot, so inflaming the situation? Were they not that person in the theatre shouting fire? And now that the truth is in, that there was no massive far-right threat last night, will collars be felt for incitement? And look at the cost to the public purse and some businesses. Whoever was involved in fueling that fire, something that could have led to tragedy, should be held to account. But somehow I doubt it. And that is one of the reasons for the Met Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, to be claiming it was the threat of police presence that kept the far right at bay. not the fact that there was negligible involvement from anyone from the right. But beware of Keir Starmer and his authoritarian Stasi cabinet using all this as an excuse to further shut down our freedom of expression. That is coming down the tracks, be in no doubt. But it was okay yesterday for some 25,000 lefties up and down the land to strut about shouting their usual anti-Semitic slogans. And then there's that Labour councillor Ricky Jones, who's alleged, yes, even though what he said is there on Twitter, you still have to say alleged, he is alleged to have made some extremely unpleasant remarks and hand signals about how he thinks those around him should dispatch with their political opponents. Let's see that dangerous, nasty piece of work rush through these emergency courts and given a nice, harsh sentence. Oh, and that also goes for the performing seals stood around cheering and clapping after he said it. Lots of collars to feel there too. So much for their slogan, smash fascism, on their placards. They do need to look in the mirror to see what they should be condemning. And then we come to Croydon, where there was violence, although the police are not, it seems, calling it a riot. And it was not, according to the police, connected at all to the expected events of the evening. Therefore, none of them were far right. But who were they? Last night there were 15 arrests in London, and 10 of them were in Croydon. 2/3 of the arrests, and some of them are accused of carrying weapons, but not connected to the protest or counter-protest. So that'll put all the conspiracy theories about two-tier policing to bed. Won't it? Does that mean the perps avoid being immediately sent to an emergency court for trial and sentence in the full glare of publicity? Does that mean they get quickly released on bail and then dealt with quietly in a few months' time when the events of last night are all but forgotten? Maybe the thought of friends of those perps descending en masse on the police station last night didn't appeal to the authorities. I'm hoping I'm wrong and that we'll very soon see them banged up. Now, at the end of the day, the Unite the Kingdom pro-UK movement must stick to well-prepared and well-run massive rallies. These small meetings were a good idea, but the left will do all they can to disrupt them. My message is, save your money and your energy to get to the upcoming big peaceful events. Yes, there are plans. We need more July the 27th. Then we will be unstoppable. Richard.
Excuse me whilst I state the obvious here, but we live in extremely dark times. We all knew that under Labour things would take a turn for the worse, but I doubt any of us would have imagined they would plunge us into a dystopian nightmare so soon after taking office. Jeff took some serious flack yesterday, but he was proven right, as that list of locations for protest, so-called protests that were meant to be happening, it was proven to be completely fraudulent and a trap. A trap that could have cost ordinary, decent people like you watching this, it could have cost you your life. Okay, that's it. I am proud that Jeff put that video out yesterday, telling people not to attend any of those specific locations on that list because his instincts were correct. And had any of you turned up, you'd have placed yourselves and anyone that you brought with you in immediate danger. Because the whole thing was a badly crafted or well-crafted piece of disinformation designed to create a flashpoint of conflict. And I will reiterate, many people may have lost their lives had they attended. Now, I'm sorry to say this, but random protesting will now be weaponized by the establishment and their preferred demographic and useful idiot liberal lefties who support them. But organised protests for decent people of Britain, done in consultation with the police, are not just safe, but a far more effective way of delivering the message in numbers. Not just delivering the message, but affecting change. But of course, random marches by the preferred demographic will continue to go ahead as and when they wish, because it's not just two-tier policing at play here. It's a complete two-tier society being constructed around us. And you and I are on the bottom rung of that ladder. I hear of more terrible news today as this country continues to go to hell in a handcart because we have allowed evil to enter this land. We have to take responsibility for this ourselves. So who is going to stop this from getting any worse? The police? No, they have their hands tied and are now very much the tools of the state as they have been for a very long time. And should any of us even consider taking the law into our own hands, we will be clamped down upon immediately, whether that's online or if it's out on the streets. Now, you know what my answer to this is going to be, and many of you don't want to hear the answer, but it's the same answer I have given for ages. Get to church. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Stay with me. As I keep saying, going to church is the most rebellious and practical act we can do. I am hearing so often about how we need to regain our cultural Christianity. Cultural Christianity? What is that? Oh, just living by the biblical and moral standards of the Bible? Well, yes, it's a good thing to do, but it's just like in 2 Timothy, where we are told that in the last days there would be people, and I quote from the Bible, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. And it also says, have nothing to do with such people. End of quote. So if anyone's talking to you about we need to just be culturally Christian, ignore them. Walk away from them. So many times I used to watch Jordan Peterson evade the question of if he is a Christian or not, and it used to infuriate me. But now I get it, because it's not something to be taken lightly to call yourself a Christian. And our forefathers who built Britain knew that too. Being a Christian means to be called to become a holy people and lift our moral standard both individually and as a nation in the body of Christ. It's not enough to just sing hymns. It's not enough to just say you're a Christian without doing the legwork of taking your own personal sins seriously. And that means us, as a society, taking our transgressions against God as a nation seriously. The Old Testament is filled with examples of Israel turning away from God, entering into a sinful state, and then coming under the judgment of the living God that they have rejected. And that's exactly where we are now today in Britain, under the judgment of the living God, because we have not just turned away from him, and nothing, we've got to realize that nothing great has ever been achieved, really, under secularism. I'm sorry, you can say what you want. The beauty and romance of this green and pleasant land has been replaced by rational reductionism. I don't care who this offends. We can talk about positive movements of resistance and taking back our country until we are blue in the face. But if Christ is not at the center of any movement, it is doomed to fail. You want to take the streets, and take the streets and cause trouble and attack places of worship of another demographic? Let me tell you something. You will not empty any such places of any other faiths when you act in hate. But it is Christ who will empty all such places, as he did many times over the Near East and Europe 2,000 years ago, through his message and through his spirit and his presence. Only when we, as a nation, do as ancient Israel did and humbly come before God, clothed in sackcloth and ashes, which means to truly humble ourselves before God, only then will Britain be restored. It's our choice, and we need to do it on an individual and national basis, to be changed through Christ and serious about our sin. Yes, your church may have gone woke. Tell the priest, tell the vicar that you want the gospel and nothing but the gospel preached to you, and to become serious about sin. It is a real thing. Christ died for it. We know that. But are we going to just throw that back in his face and not be conscious of it? I'm very much a hypocrite here, because I myself have continuously and continue to sin. I need to get more serious, and so do you. We all do. If we want the Britain of yesteryear back, then we need to become the people of yesteryear. And they were a humble people of Christ who trusted in him. Some of you will say that being a Christian and a Christian nation filled with Christians will change nothing, and even prayer is impractical. And to you I give this warning: don't deny Christ's power, or he may deny you. Now, God bless all of you. and get to church.